So Kamala Harris gave her first interview, in this case to CNN, and it went exactly as many of us had predicted. It was a train wreck, but in my case, it really surprised me because I never imagined that it was going to be as bad as this. This is Joe Biden debate levels of bad. And to prove that, let's jump in on the first clip so you can understand the magnitude of this, how this interview actually harmed Kamala Harris, whatever she's doing on the presidential race.
If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class.
And the reaction, you see a couple things. Right out of the gate, we have not only that she's going to have her eyes all around the place. Instead of being on the interviewer, she's not looking directly at the interviewer. She's looking to the side or is looking at the table. Some have said, oh, she might have notes on the table, but no, we can see in the video that in the video itself that the table was empty. She did not have notes. Whatever she's answering, that's her answering, which is which is concerning enough. She's got some pacifying gestures like this thumb in the corner of her mouth, which is nervousness. And again, that couple of things for the first question that was asked is it's a bit too much. You know that the first questions are going to be perhaps the most important. In this case, it's a rather general one. What are you going to do on day one? And we also had this that happened, that she wants to support and strengthen the middle class, but she denies with her head when she says it. There it goes. She is denying with her head. You know that you can use your head shake to emphasize things, but in this case, she's not emphasizing anything. Like, strengthen the middle class. I don't see it as emphasis. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt to not be too harsh on her. I'm gonna do it, but at the end of that sentence, you see that she presses her lips in a bit of frustration, like it's like resigned about everything or what she just said, in which, in my opinion, is the worst way to end that first answer. She is looking away, looking at the table, pacifying gestures of nervousness. She is shaking her head in an odd way. I could give her a pass on that. But that lip pressing, I mean, it's not going well. It's not starting well at all. We're going to focus on this analysis on Kamala Harris, by the way. I might do a separate analysis for Tim Walz because there's a lot to unpack here. Let's move on.
When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward, in a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism.
Notice that at this point, she hasn't really answered the question. She is talking about hope and aspirations. She was asked a very precise question. What are you going to do on day one? And, well, she had to be asked that question again.
I think, sadly, in the last decade, we have had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans. Again,
she is not answering the question. She's saying that, well, it's Trump's fault for some reason. She is going totally off the question that was asked. So this is when I tell you that Dana asks the question a second time.
Really dividing our nation, and I think people are ready to turn the page on that.
So what would you do day one?
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard, which include what we're going to do to bring down the cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest in families, for example, extending the time.
There are a couple of things that I don't understand on Kamala Harris when she's talking about these topics, especially family, for example, that she has this smirk on her face, and which is rather odd. Maybe she could be delighted about this. She mentions this policy a couple times during the interview, but I don't know. Maybe she was not so sure what was going to stick, but she mentioned about the tax break for families, for children. I'm going to mute this track a bit just to come back to another moment. It was this part. I have already laid out a number of proposals in that regard, and she keeps looking down. She keeps looking at the table. I don't. Again, many people say, "Oh, she got notes," but if she had notes, she would be saying concrete things. She will be giving concrete answers because the answers will be in the notes. But no, she's not giving real answers, in fact. So moving on, she begins to talk about the cost of everyday goods. That's going to be asked again later. I'm going to unmute so we can keep listening.
To $6,000 for families for the first year of their child's life, to help them buy a car seat, to help them buy baby clothes.
Again, she's been shaking her head. I'm going to say that maybe she's emphasizing that families are going to have all this. It's a bit of dissonance, that shaking her head like no, but I'm going to again give her a pass. There's so many out later that is really suspicious, much more suspicious than this head shakings. But let's move on.
There's the work that we're going to do that is about investing in the American family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now.
Okay, something that I notice is that when she begins to talk about investing in the American family, she begins to shrug. I pointed out one of her shoulders, but in fact, it's both shoulders that she begins to be smaller in that in that frame. It's like she's getting nervous about the topic. Investing in the American family is something, of course, very vague, very abstract. There's nothing concrete about that. So I guess that she knew that was not cutting it, that she should have been given more concrete answers.
Family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now. So there are a number of things on day one. What about you?
Again, what happens here at the end of these sentences is that she presses her lips. I'm going to mute again so you can see it. She presses her lips at the end of those sentences, like she is upset or nervous or frustrated. There's a bit of a negative emotion in there. It doesn't look confident at all, between the looking at the table, looking away, and not looking at the interviewer with conviction of what you're going to do. And you will be excited to apply all this to, continue your legacy, because you're in the White House right now, continue growing. But this is not the energy that we see from Kamala Harris. I could say from a humane perspective, maybe she has been through a lot of stress lately. Maybe she hasn't slept well. She's not even POTUS yet. So, she doesn't look as clever and energetic than in her public speeches and her rallies, by the way. So something that I want to mention as well is that the setting was really gray in this case. Let's say that the word is gray. She was wearing gray. There was this cafeteria. They wanted to make it seem like it was a a normal conversation between regular people. But again, it looked really odd, especially for the fact that Kamala Harris looks like dwarfed, diminished between the interviewer and Tim Walz. She looks small. It was so odd to see that. Why did they choose this? And even the lighting was very bad. And you see all this darkness and lack of color. I know that's not much joy in there. Again, this is all aesthetic decisions on CNN's production team, and I can guess that someone at CNN's production team, especially in terms of who was in charge of picking the angle and the lighting and everything, they are not fans of Kamala Harris. They made them look really bad on that in that regard. Then she asked Tim Walz about, what about you? I'm going to skip Tim Walz parts in here. Maybe I will do a video about him later. But let's talk about this. Groceries.
Because their groceries were less expensive, housing was more affordable when Donald Trump was president.
Well, let's start with the fact that when Joe Biden and I came in office, during the height of a pandemic, we saw over 10 million jobs were lost. People, I mean, literally, we were all tracking the numbers. Hundreds of people a day were dying because of COVID.
Okay, to be fair, yeah, COVID was a real hit to the economy of the United States, so they had to deal with that. That is a reality. And again, maybe her body language is not as reassuring of what was the solution. If she's proud of what they did, she should be. She's talking about what the Biden-Harris administration did, and she looks gloomy and defeated. Not that. It doesn't look like they did something that was recovering the economy.
The economy had crashed, in large part all of that because of mismanagement by Donald Trump of that crisis. When we came in, our highest priority was to do what we could to rescue America, and today we know that we have inflation at under 3%. A lot of our policies have led to the
Okay, she said that inflation was at 3%, which I don't know if that is the actual official record, because I know that my American friends have been really crushed by high prices in everything in the last couple of years. So I don't see any body language markers in here, her facial expression that were changing when she said that 3% inflation. So maybe it's something that she has rehearsed and she actually believes that has happened, but still is the same gloomy and defeated body language.
Reality that America recovered faster than any wealthy nation around the world. But you are right. Prices, in particular for groceries, are still too high.
So there was 3% inflation, which is a bit over the 2% that is considered healthy inflation, but still prices are too high. How do you combine both things? In this case, you're trying to soften the real statement, the statement of reality that prices are too high. That is an undeniable fact. But she began saying that, well, they inherited this bad economy from Donald Trump. That is something that every single politician is going to say, so I'm just going to ignore it. That's normal politics fare. And but the way that she talks about what she and Biden did, is not being proud of what she did. Which is something odd, because this is the kind of moments that you have the opportunity to be hopeful. She's talking about the middle class, the American middle class, to be hopeful about the future, whatever they're going to do, they're going to build. She doesn't project joy or being hopeful about anything here.
American people know it, I know it, which is why my agenda includes what we need to do to bring down the price of groceries. For example, dealing with an issue like price gouging, what we need to do to extend the child tax credit to help young families be able to take care of their children in their most formative years, what we need to do to bring down the cost of housing.
Okay, I'm going to, for some sections, I'm going to try to accelerate this, playing at double speed. I'm going to begin playing at double speed. Just after pointing out that she still has this pressing of the lips every now and then. She still has this not confident, a bit frustrated, a bit upset, and it is not looking good. Again, you know that I'm not a Harris or Walz fan at all. I don't. I absolutely don't like the way that their policies, which, by the way, they have not stated on their website yet, and we are 68 or 67 days until the elections. And still, why would they do and release an interview like this and make her look this bad? I mean, this is the best that you could make her look during an interview on a friendly media like CNN. And what's worse is that this interview was originally 41 minutes long, and it was cut to just 19 minutes or something like that, like 18 minutes, like a TED Talk. And that is counting Tim Walz's interventions that I don't understand. Why you want to interview the one who is going to be, one who is running to be president of the United States, and you need Tim Walz by her side doing what exactly? It's like it was distracting, and again, the composition of whatever was happening was not the ideal. Again, I am not a Kamala Harris fan, but they made so many mistakes here that I want to point out. This is just terrible in many ways. It's gloomy, it's not hopeful, and absolutely not joyful. I'm going to play this in double speed.
My proposal includes what would be a tax credit of $25,000 for first-time home buyers, so they can just have enough to put a down payment on a home, which is part of the American dream and their aspiration, but do it in a way that allows them to actually get on the path to achieving that goal and that dream.
Okay, so in some ways, in many very specific ways, when she says, for example, of that 25,000 number, she has some flashes of being proud, of being sure that what she's going to do. I'm not that sure how that's going to work, because in being practical, that's only going to make houses be $25,000 more expensive. But at least she has a glimmer of, okay, I'm sure about this. This is something you're sure that that's one of the things she's going to do. That is not going to work as she expects it to work, that is another thing. But let's continue. There comes an important question.
That dream.
So you have been vice president for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
The steps that you're talking about now, why haven't you done them already?
Well, first of all, we had to recover as an economy, and we have done that. I'm very proud of the work that we have done that has brought inflation down to less than 3%.
Again, she says that, well, this time she says that inflation is less than 3%. And she answered with, very calmly, that was a question, why haven't you done that? And again, she mentions the previous period. She mentions something akin to the economy has to be recovered. In a sense, that could be true, but how much time did you need for that? And what were the details of that recovery? What exactly did you do? That would be interesting to know, but we still don't know what were those the policies to recover the economy, and much less what will be the policies from this point onwards. But I'm going to play this at double speed again.
The work that we have done to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors. Donald Trump said he was going to do a number of things, including allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Never happened. We did it. So
you know what? This part, her body language is pretty much the same. I'm not going to bother you with part of the policies. Again, this is not the policy analysis guy. This is the body language guy. Many things about her policies. I have read about the immigration policies. That's something that I can talk about, but I cannot talk about the Medicaid policies because I haven't read about them. So I'm going to skip this part to this upcoming part of the interview.
What we have done to improve the supply chain so we're not relying on foreign governments to supply American families with their basic needs, I'll say that that's good work. There's more to do, but that's good work.
Okay, finally, a couple of things. She has this, she presses her lips at the end, but not that tight. She has better eye contact this time with the interviewer. And so whatever she said previously about Medicare and capping the insulin cost at 35, she was real about it. She was proud of it. Maybe if you can confirm or have a comment about this, the comments are open. But this part, she was sure and confident of what she had done. So this is like the baseline of confidence that she had to show from the beginning and didn't. And this is kind of mistakes she is making that is not making her look good in any way. Not that I would like her to do better, because she should have many advisors to do that work, and they're being paid for.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020.
Okay, notice a couple of things here. She says no, but she says yes with her head. Let's say that she is saying yes with her head, which she is doing this. Again, we're seeing this a couple of times with these contradictions. I could give her a pass before when she was denying with her head. I gave her 2 passes already, but now she's saying no, she's not gonna ban fracking, and she moves her head this way. That would be 3 passes. I never give 3 passes on my videos. I always give 1, and that's it. So I don't think this is something that we should be. We should trust what's coming out of her mouth. And the best part is that the interviewer makes sure to point a couple of things. Take a look at this.
And I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020 that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
There's a very subtle eye flutter with her blinking. There's a very quick blinking. I'm going to rewind so you see it. Let's see if you can catch the quick blinking when she repeats the fracking thing.
Ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
She just did it right there.
Ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I believe, at a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So she was caught red-handed with the records, with receipts that she said that she was going to ban fracking in 2019. She said that herself, and you have this sudden surprise on her face, like, what did I say it? How can you put that out? How can you expose me in this way? So she was genuinely surprised by the remark. This is not the question. The question was if she was going to ban fracking, and we already know. So there's signals of nervousness. Right here is in 2019, you said that you were going to absolutely 100% ban fracking, and that took her by surprise. That is important. it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
What made you?
Again, a subtle, very subtle pressing of the lips right there. Not as strong as other moments, but she's a bit upset about the expose.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed. I believe it is very important that we take seriously what we must do to guard against what is a clear crisis in terms of the climate.
Okay, when she begins to talk about the climate, now we have a real pressing of the lips. You know that the climate is a controversial topic, let's say. I don't think that should be
the most urgent things in many ways. And again, Kamala Harris mentions climate a couple times. She talking about the Green Deal, talk about the environment, but not one time, not one, she mentions anything regarding nuclear power. And as I've told you many times, if anyone talks about climate change, if anyone talks about environmentalism, if anybody talks about green energy and they don't talk about nuclear power, they're hypocrites. It's that simple. It's just a heuristic, because everybody knows that nuclear power is the best, the cleanest and safest energy right now. Of course, it has evolved over time, but right now it's the cleanest and safest energy. But it's not the best business in the world, because you need long-term vision for nuclear power, because nuclear plants take like 8 years to be built right now, 6 to 8 years. So yeah, it's not something that's going to happen in your term. So maybe that's not something that politicians want to push. It's not that would not earn them brownie points. But let's move on.
And to do that, we can do what we have accomplished
Thus far, the Inflation Reduction Act, what we have done to invest, by my calculation, over probably $1 trillion over the next 10 years, investing in a clean energy economy. What we've already done, creating over 300,000 new clean energy jobs. That tells me, from my experience as Vice President, we can do it without banning fracking. In fact, Dana, I cast the tie-breaking vote that actually increased leases for fracking as Vice President. So I'm very clear about where I stand.
And was there some policy?
Okay, at least she's also had another receipt on her side that she said that I cast the tie-breaking vote that
cast the tie-breaking vote
that actually increased leases for fracking as Vice President.
So maybe she was told to do so, or maybe she finally did something. I don't know. Again, that kind of things, I think you can help me in the comments.
Very clear about where I stand.
And was there some policy or scientific data that you saw that you said, oh, okay, I get it now?
What I have seen is that we can grow and we can increase a thriving clean energy economy without banning fracking.
Okay. During the Biden-Harris administration, there were record numbers of illegal border crossings. Why did the Biden-Harris administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
Well, first of all, the root causes work that I did as Vice President, that I was asked to do by the President, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region.
So again, she is trying to soften the blow of answering the actual question about immigration. And she wants to start by saying that American entrepreneurs have invested in the region that she was in charge of, namely South America and Central America. And that's the way that you soften the blow when you're gonna get into the actual talking. Again, there's a lot of stuff in here that we might need to watch in double speed.
The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced.
She lowered her voice tone just a bit. Saying that the amount of immigrants from South and Central America and had been reduced. I don't know. I think the videos speak for themselves. I think the numbers speak for themselves. Again, you're free to comment on that with real hard data, because I don't think that it's as simple as the Vice President is putting it.
Since we began that work, but I will say this, that Joe Biden and I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border.
Okay, she's going to talk about the bill that they tried to pass this bill and Donald Trump took it down. I don't know. It's like Donald Trump has this great power to bring things down. But Donald Trump actually said that he brought that bill down. I read that bill. I think it was lukewarm. It was a band-aid to a huge problem. You have to really close the border. It's not about having more agents. It's about actually closing the border, not letting anybody in. No, it's something that you can do. It should be easy to do, right? We're talking about the security of the United States. But again, you are free to comment about this. In my opinion, the bill was too lukewarm, and that's why, Donald Trump tried to, or not tried, he actually did it. He took that bill down with his friends, and to try to to use it as his part of his campaign, right? That is what they are claiming, and I think Donald Trump has claimed it as well. Maybe not, but of course he's going to say it in the sense that I took this down because it was not enough. I'm going to do it the right way, what needs to be done. I think that is the approach. Again, you can comment on that.
And a pain that they've
So
experienced.
you would push that legislation again. I just want to
Not
ask
only
about.
push it, I will make sure that it comes to my desk and I would sign it.
She's talking about the bill, the immigration bill that was taken down by Donald Trump.
One other question about something that you said in 2019 when you first ran. There was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally.
I think she was trying to distance herself from all those videos. There's more than one in which she said that that illegal immigrants were not criminals, that they should be decriminalized. But there's out there. There's too many to count. That was her stance back then. And now she's saying that I believe we have laws in place. She's not talking about the topic itself. She's talking about the laws that are written about that, but someone has to enforce them. Are you going to enforce them or not? She's not answering the question.
And there should be consequence. And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who.
Okay, there's a bit of smugness in there. She's proud about that. I'm going to just jump a bit to this part a bit forward.
Because my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real.
Okay, again, she's jumping from topic to topic in many ways. We have these different questions, and she is evading most of them. I don't know what Tim Walz is doing right there by her side, besides making her look smaller. Not a good look. It doesn't look good at all, and she's not really answering most of the questions. I would like her to answer with actual data and actual policies. But again, she doesn't have those policies, not even in her website.
I believe it is important to build consensus. And it is important to find
A common place of understanding of where we can actually solve problems.
On that note, you had a lot of Republican speakers at the convention. Will you appoint a Republican to your cabinet?
Yes, I would.
Anyone
Yes,
in
I
mind?
would. No one in particular in mind. We got 68 days to go with this election, so I'm not putting the cart before the horse, but I would.
Okay, this again, that I think this is not as important if she would have a Republican or not. There comes a rather delicate question. We are getting into something much more important right now.
I want to ask you about your opponent, Donald Trump.
Okay.
I was a little bit surprised. People might be surprised to hear that you have never interacted with him, met him face to face. That's going to change soon. But what I want to ask you about is what he said last month. He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Okay, this is something that pressing of her mouth, that the way that she presses her mouth, that's something that she hasn't done in any other part of the interview. I wouldn't. That of course that doesn't have a meaning in itself, but that reaction is not like she is dismissing it. She wants to dismiss it with her words. That's it. That's what she's going to answer. But this is not dismissive. I don't know how to define this, but I'm going to tell you. I'm going to show you her answer. I'm going to say something about her answer.
For political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any?
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
Again, this is something that she could have she could have used that question to, well, talk a bit about herself, just for 30 seconds, and talk about her family, talk about the values of being biracial. I don't know. It's so many things that you can exploit that, and you skip over that question. That was odd, especially if the question is about your main opponent, Donald Trump, the racist, saying that you're using your race to get ahead on this presidential race. Is a bit of pun unintended. But again, that's something that she could have used to frame herself as more relatable. If she wanted to answer questions in a very shady cafeteria and instead of a proper setting for a presidential race interview, but she didn't. I was a bit baffled by this. It's like she wants to. It's like that narrative is not. It's not doing well with the intended target audience, so she has to skip it. She cannot talk about that. I'm sure that her advisors told her, any questions about you being black, just skip it, just dismiss it. This is not something that you should be talking. That could be exploited if it had some kind of positive impact on her, the way that her voters see her. But no, that's why it was skipped.
Policy issues that would be on your plate if you become commander-in-chief.
Let me be very clear. I'm unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself. And that's not going to change.
I think she was being truthful in here. She said it's still the same, a bit insecure body language, but I think she had warmed up already, and she was beginning to say the lines that she had to memorize about her policies with Israel, and I think it's a real deal, and she repeats them over and over again.
But let's take a step back. October 7.
She talks about October 7, that was this terrible thing happening, and in Israel, many million people were killed and raped. And
as I said then, I say today, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed.
You see that the topic is a landmine, and she hasn't practiced it enough. This is something that you should practice. What is your stance on the Middle East? You have to practice it 100 times. No, Kamala Harris hasn't practiced that answer 100 times. I can guarantee you, because this is something that she should answer with the utmost confidence in herself. And this is the kind of things. Body language is something that you assess if you are in the Middle East and you want to know if she is bluffing or what. This is like poker, but in a global scale. And no, this is not it. This is not the way to speak about these issues.
We have got to get a deal done. We were in Doha. We have to get a deal done. This war must end.
In the meantime,
and we must get a deal that is about getting the hostages out. I've met with the families of the American hostages. Let's get the hostages out. Let's get the ceasefire done.
but no change in policy in terms of arms and so forth.
No, we have to get a deal done. Dana, we have to get a deal done.
She just begins to repeat the same sentence over and over again. She says the sentence like 3 times. So I'm going to, let's do something. I think I have another part in here. I'm going to point at this last part.
President Harris, you were a very staunch defender of President Biden's capacity to serve another 4 years right after.
This one is
the
important.
debate. You insisted that President Biden is extraordinarily strong. Given where we are now, do you have any regrets about what you told the American people?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have...
Notice that she fixed on her seat and look away again when she has to tell the truth about what was going to with Biden, that she's not going to say it directly, or that she she was trying to cover up what was going on with President Biden. And by the way, where is Biden right now? I think he's on vacation right now. Who is running the country?
Served with President Biden for almost 4 years now, and I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest honors of my career, truly. He cares so deeply about the American people.
Okay, blah, blah, blah. Let's skip here.
The American people rightly deserve in their president. By contrast, the former president has none of that.
Of course, she had to mention Trump at some point. But again, she says that Biden was so great, was so amazing, was so everything. But nobody can explain why Biden was really dropping out of the race. And then she's asked about what was she doing if Biden endorsed her immediately or afterwards or whatever. And she tells a story about that she was in this family meeting and reunion. And she got the call from Biden saying that I'm dropping out of this. And I don't know. It's a bit contrived. But again, there are a couple of things I want to take from this analysis. It was a lot to unpack. It was more than 19 minutes of Kamala Harris speaking. Again, I will be doing a separate video about teen walls. But this is in any way, this is not in any way how you inspire confidence in anybody. Again, you know that I'm not a Kamala Harris fan. I will point the mistakes of CNN, of Kamala Harris, of her advisors. That's what I do. But no, this is not going to. This is going to impact her negatively in ways that most people are beginning to comprehend right now. This was very bad. It was a train wreck interview, both in terms of body language, both in terms of how she evaded questions and did not give direct answers, and how the answers that were critical, like the Middle East conflict, that's something that you should have like the palm of your hand in every single way. And no, not in terms of your verbal ability, or not in terms of your body language. There's no confidence in here. And that is Kamala Harris in essence. And this is just the first interview that was cut short by CNN on Kamala Harris running for president. But again, I would love to know what do you think about this in the comments. This might not be the last video I will make about this interview. I'm sure that I'm going to spot many other things down the line, so maybe I will be doing a second video about this. Remember to download my free 100 body language tips in the description, and you will get subscribed to my email updates as well. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy. Much love and bliss.